Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. And I got to tell you, this gentleman was on my show back in November of 2021. And I know him, like me, is a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. And since that time, the Eagles have been to 2 Super Bowls, and they won one. And in fact, when he was on my show last time, we talked about how he used to watch, instead of going to a bar, he used to watch the games in the back of the tour bus. And he has a new solo album coming out. I listened to it. It's really good. It's got that 70s rock. It's got a good feel. It's called New Day. And my guest is John Corabi. How you doing, John?
I'm all right, buddy. How are you?
Good.
Go Birds.
Yeah, so tell me about the new album, man. It's I listened to it. I like it. You have 2 videos. You just put a video out today, I believe. And
Actually, it's number 3. We did a video for the title track. It's called New Day.
right, I saw that.
Second single was a track called When I Was Young. We did that, and today, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, a song called That Memory dropped. So it's looking good, dude. I'm so stoked about this record. It's ridiculous.
You know, before when you were on, it was Cosi Bella. You had just released that. Now, I know you have that song's in the album. So what made you decide to do a full-blown, and I believe this is your first solo album, right? Full-length solo album?
No, well, yes and no. It's weird. There's a misconception. This is the first record that I've done with a full band. I did do an acoustic record in 2013, and it was just, me and a bunch of friends here at my house. There was, I'd say maybe 60% of the record was new material, but just acoustically. We didn't even have drums. We used percussion. So it was a really stripped down record. But I put that out. It did well. And then I recorded in 2014 or 15. I was doing the Motley Crue, the album that I did in its entirety live. And I just recorded it for prosperity because I didn't want to do it anymore. So I released that as a solo record as well. And then this is my, for lack of a better term, first all new material with a band. You know what I mean? Kind of a deal. So, yeah, it's my first solo record, but not really.
So when did you start writing all the material? What made you think to put this together now? Because it's people. I'm sure people are waiting for it. You have a big fan base. But what made you sit there and go, now is the time to get the full band together and just do it?
Well, to be honest with you, I was, like you said, I did release Cosi Bella and another song called Your Own Worst Enemy. But if I can be completely frank and blunt, I am not a computer literate guy. And now it's like it's not even about selling records or anything anymore. It's like streaming and hashtags and algorithms, all of which I don't understand any of it. So I had started releasing the 2 songs, and then I was like, I don't understand this. I don't understand this process. So I kind of put a brakes on it for a minute. And then oddly enough, the Daisies called me and asked me to come back to the band. So I got sidetracked with that. We did, we put a best of record out. I toured on that. Then we came home and we recorded a new record called Light 'Em Up, and then followed it up with a blues record. So I've been kind of busy. And then oddly enough, last year, Frontiers just called and said, hey, do you want to do a record? And I'm like, yeah, you know what, actually, let me do a record with them. I don't get this whole, like I said, computer stuff. So I'll finish up the record that I had started and let them kind of guide me through the process of algorithms, streaming, like all this other stuff. So oddly enough, I signed the deal last year, and then the Daisies said, well, we're taking a year off. So it just kind of made sense. It all just kind of fell together organically, kind of the way it was supposed to. You know what I mean?
Now, you started that album in the past, and you said you came back to do it. How many songs were in the mix for when this album that you had written lately or in the past? What's the breakdown?
I would say, I mean, obviously I had Cossi Bella, Your Own Worst Enemy, and then a song called Love That'll Never Be. They were kind of done. And then once I got this record deal, I just called Marty again and said, hey, Marty Fredrickson, would you be into producing this record for me? And he goes, yeah, sure. So once I finished the tour with the Daisies, then Marty and I just got together at either his house or my house with a couple acoustics, started mapping everything out, and then we went right into the studio and just finished recording the rest of the songs. So I guess there's 12 songs. So I had 3. So 9 of their songs are kind of new. You know what I mean?
So what was your writing process for these songs? Because it has a really good sound. It has like a blues. Like when I listen to it, it's got a good sound. And one of the songs sort of at the beginning sounded like a little like Foghat, like that rock that I loved. You know, like that rock we don't hear anymore. You don't hear that. You don't hear, you know. I mean, I'm sure there's younger bands, but I'm thinking. So how did you get the sound that you wanted?
Well, you know, a lot of it was Marty. I told him what I wanted, and you know, I know you're probably not going to understand this being only like 25 or 30 years old. I'm a bit older than you. But no, you know what? It's weird, dude. I just told Marty, I said, listen, man, one of the things that irritates the hell out of me about the music industry anymore is like these bands put, whether it's a song or a record, immediately the suits, I call them the suits, all the people involved in the streaming services, radio, like all that stuff, they immediately try to figure out, okay, what category is this? What box does it fit into? And, you know, I mean, when we were kids, man, it was like, you know, there was concerts at the Spectrum, and the stuff that I grew up listening to, the Creedence Clearwater Revivals, the Zeppelins, I mean, even Aerosmith to a degree, these bands didn't really have, like, you couldn't really put them in a box. And then as a fan, it wasn't unusual for a kid like me to go see Sabbath on Monday, but then go see Cat Stevens on Tuesday, and then Grand Funk Railroad or Led Zeppelin on Wednesday, and then Thursday you were going to see, you know, Yes or Jethro Tull or, you know, the Mahavishnu Orchestra, you know, and then you go see David Bowie at the Tower Theater or Alice Cooper, whatever. So it was just like, I just like music. Even as a kid, I don't know if you remember the place was over in Jersey. My parents used to take me all the time.
Latin Casino?
And I would go the Latin Casino.
Yeah.
And I remember going there. I saw Glenn Campbell there. I saw Roy Clark, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, you know. So my only real specification for doing this record was I just wanted to write stuff that Marty and I thought was cool. And, like, I'll let everybody else figure out what box it belongs in. I just wanted something that was, like, just a good old-fashioned album full of quality songs that, you know, doesn't necessarily fall into, all right, is it metal? Is it classic rock? Is it alternative? You know what I mean? I just can't stand those boxes. So I just wrote songs that were appealing to me. And honestly, like even I was saying, you know, I had a couple of songs written already, but the songs that we did write together, you know, towards the end there, they were just, it was effortless. Because we weren't thinking about, all right, it's got to sound like this, or it's got to sound like that. We just kind of let the music go where it wanted to go. And if it was worthy, we put it on the record.
Well, it's
You
funny.
know what I mean?
It's funny you mentioned about the boxes because when you're mentioning the concerts, and I remember going to see, I think I was a junior in high school. I'm not even sure, but at JFK Stadium, it was Thorogood, Journey, and the Stones. Completely different across the board, but people loved it, and they went. It was packed, and that's the thing. The concerts back then, like Philadelphia especially, would put Frampton and Skinner. You know, now you would never see that. So, I mean, it's good that you do that because what were some of the good concerts? Did you see any concerts at JFK?
Oh, dude. No, actually, you know what's funny? I had tickets to see Zeppelin, but like both times I had tickets to see Zeppelin there. The first time Robert Plant's son died, and they canceled. And then it was the second time I had actual tickets. I believe it was in 79 or 80. I bought tickets for them, and then Bonham died. And so I never saw Zeppelin ever, which is a huge regret of mine. I never saw Grand Funk Railroad, the original, Mark Don Mel, and even Craig Frost, the keyboard player. I never got to see that version of Grand Funk. So, but I mean, I saw Queen with Freddie Mercury 5 times at the Spectrum. I saw Heart on the Dog and Butterfly tour multiple times. I think I saw Aerosmith every time. Like at one point, I think they were an opening act at the Tower Theater. So I had my fair share of concerts. And it was brilliant, but you didn't think of it. I remember I went to Frankfurt High School, and this guy sat next to me, Billy Cowie, and we would just sit and talk about, he was a huge, he was into like Dylan, Grateful Dead, Wishbone Ash, and I was into like the Zeppelin, Aerosmith, Queen. And we would just sit there and we would just trade notes, and play each other's stuff, and but again, you didn't think of the boxes.
Right.
And I remember days like going to Frankfurt High School, rolling a joint, skipping school altogether, sitting out on the front lawn, smoking weed and, but even listening to shit like Johnny Cash and, whatever was, whatever you thought was cool, it was okay. You know what I mean? Now it's like, oh, you're a grunge guy, or you're a classic rock guy. You know what I mean? And it's like, stop with there's 2 kinds of music: good music and bad music.
Right.
That's it. I don't care about any of the other labels.
See, it's funny because when I drive my Amazon Music, I have Amazon Music Unlimited. My soundtrack comes on, and I will hear some metal. I will hear some Zeppelin. I will hear some English beat. I hear all this stuff, and you know what? It's all good, and it sits there because you want to hear different things because that's how we grew up listening to that. Now I have a question. You grew up liking all kinds of music, but as you cultivated as an act, who did you look to when you knew you were going to be a front man? Was there any impressionable person on you that you said, I want to be like, this is who I really love? Or how does one become a front man? Do you look at someone and say, I can do that? Or how's that happen?
For me, it was an accident because I started as a guitar player and, I was playing places like the Penalty Box, Jeans on the Boulevard, Heaven in Pennsauken. And it was funny. I just remember I was playing guitar and we had a singer. I can't remember his name. I know his name was Tommy. I can't remember his last name. But I was playing like rhythm guitar, and then, he would sing a set, and I would give him a break in the middle of each set, because back then you were doing 4 sets a night, 5 sets a night. And he was doing more of the stuff like Journey, John Waite, the Babies, like the cleaner stuff. And then I would step up to the mic with my guitar, and I'd do the Zeppelin, Aerosmith, Dio, like stuff that had a little more to it. And this guy, I don't know if you remember them, they were huge in the scene when I was a kid, but this guy, Rick Caldwell, he played guitar for a band called Squeeze that was really popular they were doing Zeppelin tributes, and Ricky was putting a new band together, and he kind of yanked a few guys out of my band, and then while he was talking to them, he goes, "Oh man, I really dig your guitar player too, but I don't want him to play guitar. I want him to front the band." And I just became this frontman by proxy. But in all honesty, if I had to pick, like my 3 favorite singers or frontmen, it would have to be Robert Plant, Steven Tyler, and Steve Marriott. You know what I mean? So those were the guys that I was like, I had their posters on the wall, and I'm like, if I want to do this, if I want to be that guy someday, I got to figure out how to write my own shit. You know what I mean?
When did you start writing? I mean, what age did you really start writing? Because, a lot of people don't know. When you were with Crue, you wrote a lot of that album. So, the album you did. But, so when did you personally start writing?
I mean, I started even back in Philadelphia before I even moved to L.A. I started, and it's really funny. It's like, I can't even go back and listen to some of my earlier stuff, you know what I mean? It's just like so caveman. And it's just, again, it's something, the more you do it, the better you get at it, and I just sit and I just cringe when I listen to some of my earlier lyrics, because then I was like, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. And, all I was thinking about was the real estate between women's legs.
Right.
And that's all I was writing about. But, I sit down and I had a song called Weekend Love Affair, so you can figure that out just from the title, what that was about. And a song called Shake, Shake, was just about watching a girl walk away, whatever. So, but it was, I just kind of knew early on, like, just reading all those classic magazines like Hit Parader, Cream, Circus, you're reading about your Robert Plants and Steven Tylers and, the Steve Marriotts and all these cats that we grew up listening to, and you come to the realization, like, you know what, I'm making a reasonably good living playing other people's music, but if I want to be a rock star and ride on the Learjets and, trash hotel rooms and all that other kind of stuff, be a multi-gazillionaire, I need to figure out how to write my own stuff. So I started writing, pretty early on. And like I said, it was caveman, but, and then I went through the circuit or tried to go through what places there were in Philadelphia, New Jersey, Delaware, because back then there weren't many at all that were into original, for lack of a better term, original classic rock or hard rock, original music. There, it was, because back then it was the Hooters, Baru Review, Robert Hazard and the Heroes,
Tommy Conwell.
Yeah, all those cats were kicking ass, but there was no place for original rock stuff. You either played the Empire Rock Room or the Galaxy. And on a fluke, a buddy of mine, Johnny D, he went to L.A. and he was like, dude, you got to go to L.A., man. It's like crazy out there. Like every club, there's an original rock act. So I did that. But I made the move, and that's when I just really started to get into the writing thing. I just didn't do anything. I drove a car during the day, and I rehearsed with my band at night.
What do you mean you drove a car? You were like a car service?
No. It was more like I worked for this company called Ad Delivery, and it was actually kind of a cool job. I would literally go to like Paramount Pictures, and they're like, oh, hey, we need you to pick up a copy of Gone with the Wind and drive it to Glenn Ford's house. like the actor. And they all had movie theaters in their house. So I would go and I'd pick up like 5 or 6 cans of film and knock on Glenn Ford's door and go, hey, your movie's here. And I would just drop this stuff off. And so I was just doing movie stuff all the time. And you know, some new Disney flick was coming out. I'd have to go to Hollywood Pictures and pick up like the posters that you see all over at the, you know, the movie theaters and, you know, and deliver them. And so I was in that field for a minute, but it was that's what I did for a living to support me and my family. And then I was just rehearsing like every night of the week. Now, and then trying to do gigs, you know what I mean?
Now, where did you live in LA? Because when I first moved to LA, when I lived out there, I lived in Hollywood. I was in a little studio apartment behind Hollywood, and Highland wasn't up yet. So I was on right behind Highland. Highland was the one way, and Sunset, and there was a road called Leland. And I remember we used to walk to a bar called the Powerhouse. And this guy was, this was 22 years ago, and my rent was only $3.85. I can imagine what it is now. But where did you live when you first moved out there? Were you in Hollywood or the Valley, or where were you at?
Yeah, no. So you'll probably remember. So if you know where Capitol Records is, it was at
Gower?
Was it Sunset and Vine or Hollywood and Vine?
Hollywood and Vine, I believe.
Yeah, it was the big round building right there on the corner. And I lived 1 block up on a street called Yucca and 1 block in on a smaller street called Ivar.
I know Ivar. The Frolic Room was on there. No. Well, there's a
yes,
yeah.
It was down a block, but yeah. So I lived in Hollywood and Ivar, and it was hilarious the way it worked out. So my wife and I, we had apartment 1. My guitar player moved out. He had apartment 8. My drummer moved out. He had apartment 6. And then my bass player moved out. He had apartment 3. So all 4 of us lived in the same building. And then we would ride down to this place called Fernando Rehearsal Studios in East LA. And we rehearsed there. I mean, we had a monthly lockout, so we would literally go there every day unless we were playing. And then we'd go do a show, then bring our gear back, and then just set it all back up again. And so it was interesting. It was rough. It was hard, you know what I mean? Having a job and rehearsing and trying to do dates and raising a family, you know, all that shit. But it definitely gave me a backbone.
No, what was the scene like then? Because, you know, I mean, when I moved to LA, Gazzari's was gone. The Coconut Teaser was there. The scene was, I missed the whole Sunset Strip.
When did you move there?
I moved to LA, probably 2002 maybe. So I moved there.
Yeah, dude, I moved there 15 years before you. I was there in 85.
Okay, so what was it like? What was the scene like then?
Insane. Like every club, Gazzari's was open, the Whiskey was open, the Roxy, the Coconut Teaser. There was the Country Club, FM Station, Madame Wong's. There was Troubadour. There was 50 places you could play each place and then just start back at the beginning again. And you were just constantly booked. So, and when I was there, I mean, Poison wasn't signed yet. Guns N' Roses wasn't signed yet. Obviously, Ratt, Motley Crue, all those guys were kicking ass. But when I got there, that scene was alive, dude. You'd go down Sunset Boulevard between the Whiskey and the Rainbow, and it was like Mardi Gras. I mean, there was chicks walking around in like garter belts and, you know, just palm tree hair, and, you know, you're like pinch somebody's ass, turn around, it's like, oh, sorry, dude. I thought you were, you know what I mean? Whatever. And it was like, but it was insane. It was awesome. And, you know, so as soon as I saw that, I went out like 1 year prior with my wife on our anniversary. And I was like, I got to be here. I have to be here. And so she agreed, man. It was like I bought a Philadelphia Fire Department ambulance, converted it into a van. I rented a U-Haul trailer. I packed everything, sold the rest, and I just drove cross country with my wife, my daughter, my dog, and a friend that helped me do the driving. And we immediately found that apartment on Ivar, and we just got to work.
Now, when did you start feeling like the move was worth it? Because, we can always sit there and we can move, but, a lot of times people go, they look and they go, man, this move was worth it. And then they go, I don't know. Because I know a lot of actors who, they get a pilot and they think it's worth it, but then they get disgruntled because they don't get it. When did you start getting your first record deals?
Well, we actually built a following. Once everybody was there, we started playing the clubs, and we built a pretty decent following pretty quick. But it was funny. It was one of those things where I started to second guess the move. We were there, and it was like, we're kicking ass. We're selling out a lot of the clubs. And then all of a sudden I get a call from some of my friends back in Philly, and they're like, dude, Cinderella got signed, bro. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, Bon Jovi just walked into the Empire Rock Room with his producers, fell in love with the band, and, man, they fucking signed him. They're signed, dude, to Polygram. And I'm just sitting there like, are you shitting me right now? But then, so I was like, okay, well, little good luck there on Tom's part. You know what I mean? Awesome. I was happy for him. Actually, Tom came out to L.A. to mix and master his first record. And he called me on the phone. I went to the record plant, and I was like listening to the mixes with him. I'm like, dude, this is so awesome. Killer. Congratulations. We had some cocktails later. The thing that irritated me, though, was, as the record labels do, they signed Cinderella, and then they signed Britney Fox, Tangiers, Heaven's Edge, like 5 or 6 bands. I go, and I'm sitting there driving this car during the day. I go, just my luck. Like, these other 5 bands weren't even in existence when I was in Philadelphia. I go, this typical Corabi move. I took the left-hand turn, and I should have just stayed the path in Philadelphia, and I probably would have got a record deal like 3 or 4 years sooner. But I now in hindsight, you know what? Everything worked out the way it's supposed to work out for me. I wound up getting a record deal with the Scream. And then obviously the rest is history with Motley and Union and all the other stuff I did. But I just, at that one moment, I'm just going, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I fucking moved to LA to get a record deal, and every fucking band in Philadelphia gets a deal. And I'm sitting here driving fucking movies to like Henry Fonda's house. You know what I mean? So it was kind of a funny moment.
Everything does work out, but looking back at your Motley Crue time, do you think that helped your career? Because it was a time where do you think it got you new fans? Because I always wonder, because it seems like so many bands get new singers or things happen, and like with the album you did with them, everyone loves that album. I have friends who are Crue fans who go, that was the best, that was the hardest rocking, their best album, and you wrote a lot of that. But do you sit there, because it puts you. It gets you attention, but then there's so many assholes out there that sit there and, say, oh, fuck Corabi, he's no Vince Neil, or screw this guy. So how do you, when you look back in hindsight, how do you explain your experience with that?
Listen, man, I had a great time doing that record. And you know what? I've kind of, and I learned some valuable lessons being in that band. Tommy and Nikki warned me when I joined. They said, dude, everybody around you is going to tell you that you changed, but it's not you. It's how your friends perceive you. They're going to change. You're not. And I saw that firsthand. You know what I mean?
How? What
But I
happened?
also
Like,
saw-
how, like, what, did people just sit there and all of a sudden want free tickets or expect you to pick up the tab because you're the big rock band?
It was all of the above, dude. Like, ninth removed cousins calling me and asking me if I could help them with their college tuition. Do you know what I mean? It was like, come on, dude. I don't even fucking know you. Like, we've never even been to the same family function together. Like, so there was a bit of that. But it was also, too, being involved with Motley Crue. It was like, oh, you're constantly getting invites to the Playboy Mansion. You're constantly getting invites to go to concerts for free. People are constantly giving you free guitars, free amps, free shoes, free clothes, free jackets. And then all of a sudden, when Vince came back, I realized it was all kind of a facade. It's fleeting. You know what I mean? And I'm like, it really made me value things a certain way. So I look at it this way, like, did I have a great time doing that record, the Motley record? Absolutely. Do I feel good about that record? Absolutely. Do I give a shit about the people that say, fuck you, Vince sucks, you're a loser? Not at all. That's their opinion. I'm never going to change their opinion. Doesn't matter. I don't think about it. I don't worry about it. And I'm not a person that is looking in a rearview mirror all the time. I'm always looking through the windshield. I'm like, okay, where am I going? Not where have I been? But the one thing that I will say is that I will go to my grave knowing there was only 2 singers in Motley Crue. I'll always be that asterisk next to their name, and I'm fine with that. But I also realize, too, that, I don't try to advertise it, but I just did a tour of Europe. And most of these promoters around the world, doesn't matter where I go, it's John Corabi of The Scream, Motley Crue, Dead Daisies, whatever. Like, they're going to talk about it. And I know that the big one is obviously Motley Crue. So maybe to some degree, it's allowed me to extend my career longer. I don't know. I'm guessing. It's a hypothetical. Maybe my talent as a songwriter, singer, musician, whatever, would have shined through. But I even said to the record label when they offered me this deal, I said to them, if you're looking for Motley Crue Part 2, I don't want this deal. And they're like, no. And these 2 guys, Jeff Stevenson and Tom Lipsky, they said, you know what, John, you've just been this guy that's like kind of floated a little bit under the radar, but we've looked at your entire body of work and we believe in you. So I go, all right, sign me up. Let's go.
How important as an artist is that when they say we believe in you? Because I think, when someone says we believe in you, you'll take a bullet for that person. You sit there and go, this person believes in me. And then when they said, they seems like they said your whole body of work. You've been in this for a long time. You have a very successful body of work. But how important to you as an artist is it when they say, Corabi, we believe in you?
Well, it's refreshing to hear somebody say, listen, we all like it. We all like a compliment. Do you know what I mean? So the fact that these guys, and let's face it, they're investing in me. So, knock on wood, not that it'll happen. But, they could have given me money to do this record, and I did, spent this time with Marty writing all these songs and recording them, and nobody give a shit. But they're like, initially it's funny, I was a little worried for a second, but even my manager pointed it out to me. He said, dude, they wanted to put this record out. They had you initially slotted for a February release. And he said, when you turn that record in, he goes, all the guys from the label reached out to my manager, and they're like, pardon my French, but they're like, holy shit, dude, this fucking record is amazing. And the only thing I had told Jeff and Tom was, I said, man, I just don't want to be pigeonholed. As I was saying earlier, I don't want to be put into a box. I don't want to be known as the guy that screamed on a Motley Crue record 35 years ago. I'm growing, I'm changing, I'm evolving, you know. So, and I told him, I said, this is why I love artists like, you know, Bob Seger. Bob Seger to me was always another guy that, you know, he was like borderline country, but he was Americana, he was rock, he was R&B. He blended all these genres into his sound, and he made it work. So when Tom heard the record, he called my manager. He told my manager to get me on the phone, and he goes, I know you said you were going for like that kind of Bob Seger thing where nobody could categorize you. He goes, bro, you fucking nailed it. You nailed it. I love this record. And, you know, got to be honest with you, my nipples got a little hard. You know what I mean? It was like, you know, so they immediately pushed everything back to April. They're like, we want to promote this. We want to do this record right. And that's all you can ask for. You know what I mean?
Now, how was the tour?
So,
how was your tour over in Europe? What did you play the whole album, or what did this set together?
No, I did. Honestly, you know, it's funny. A lot of people were asking me what I was going to play, and it's hilarious because all of the bands that I've been in, like the Scream, never played outside of the United States. We did one show in London. One. It was completely sold out. We were riding this crest of positive interviews and feedback. And then I got the call to join Motley. Motley never played a note of music in Europe or the UK. And so I was sitting there going, I got a huge back catalog of music that nobody's ever heard live before. So I did a few Scream songs. I did, you know, I did a Motley song. I did a couple Daisies songs. I did some Union stuff. And then I did 4 or 5 songs from the new record. And honestly, like, again, and you know this, it's hard to get people to get off their couch and go see a show anymore. So I went over with the expectations, you know, if I can just go to these small little bars, if I can pull in, you know, a couple hundred people for the first trip over with a record that's not out yet, I'll be happy. And I think we were averaging like 300-400 tickets a night, which is great. I don't even have a record. Like, I didn't even have the record for sale at my merch booth. You know, it's just a T-shirt with the album cover on it. People are like, well, you know, yeah, well, you'll hear the music in a minute as soon as I get on stage. But so it was like no record, just went over, played a bunch of shows, and it was awesome. We got great reviews. The band is awesome. Again, I'm having a little bit of a pinch me moment, but it's like I've got, you know, Paul Taylor on keyboards, guitar from Winger. Marty Fredrickson, my producer, was playing guitar and singing. Troy Lucetta from Tesla on drums. Michael Devin that played with Whitesnake and the Daisies on bass guitar, and then this guy Jeremy Asbrock who played with me before, but he played with Gene Simmons and Ace Frehley for the last, 7, 8, 10 years. So the band was awesome. I got five lead singers in the band. So the backing vocals are amazing, and everybody plays their ass off. So we delivered every night. It was awesome.
Now, New Day, that's the album title and the single. Why did you choose that as the title and that song? What was the, and what does that song mean to you?
Well, you know what's funny? I was sitting here pulling my hair out because I'm like, all right, got this record, love the album, you know. Something meaningful, something, you know, poetic. And I was pulling my hair out trying to think of like a title for the album. So I'm sitting here in my spot. I don't know if you can see this or not. Like I have this little chair that I sit. Here's my refrigerator. I got a little ashtray here, so I'll reach in, grab a beer, or I'll pour myself a whiskey, and I sit out here and I was listening to the album, and the first track, New Day, and then I really kind of started listening. I go, wait, New Day. That's kind of a cool phrase. This, you know, all right, you know, it's a positive thing. It's like, you know, it's about resetting yourself, not taking no for an answer. Just keep plugging away. Don't sit there and whine about life. If you want your life to change, then you need to work your ass off and make it happen. So I go, okay. I called my manager. I go, what do you think about the title New Day for the album? He goes, sounds good to me. And then it was just like one effortless thing after another just kind of fell right into place. Even the album cover was, I go, New Day. In the chorus, I say, just let the sun shine down on you. So I went online and I was looking up sun images, and the sun card, a tarot card, the sun card came up. And I go, okay. Then I read the meaning of it, and I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. And then the final clincher, if you look at the album cover, there's a Roman numeral at the top. Even on the regular sun card, it's the number 19. And my manager goes, well, that works. This is your 19th record. And I'm like, perfect. All right. So I literally just took it. I had an artist friend of mine, like, readjust everything, and then I sent it to the label. I go, well, I didn't even break a sweat on that one. So let's do this. New Day, here's the artwork. We're done.
Now, did you have fun shooting the videos? Because videos are different now. And I got to ask you, that memory, where did you shoot that? It looked like, were they oil wells behind you, or what was behind you?
You know what's funny? This is actually kind of creepy. But these guys, they worked at the label, and they were telling me about this place that they, hold on, my phone is acting up. Wait. I don't want that close. I want this. There you go. So they're like, oh, we got this place. It's up in the high desert right outside of L.A. Okay. So we shot 2 videos on the same day. I did New Day and obviously that memory. But that scene where I'm standing out in this area playing the guitar by myself, they're like, does this look familiar to you? And I go, should it? They're like, do you remember the movie Seven with Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt? And I go, yeah. They're like, remember where the FedEx guy delivers Brad Pitt's wife's head in a box? I go, yeah. They're like, it was right there. And I go, awesome. But yeah, it was actually quite beautiful up there. It's just all these fields and hills and, you know, whatever. It was cool. It was fun.
Now, what do you want to see come from this album? I mean, do you just want to, get a lot of good people to listen to it? I mean, I think it's a point now where, of course, you would love it to be a big seller, but, what do you want from it? And do you feel that the construction, the tracking, because to me, the track order is so important in an album. When I listen to it, it goes good. Because there's nothing like sometimes when you have listened to a good album and all of a sudden there's some great song that it like skitches down and then you're like, what the hell happened? So what do you want from the album, and do you like the track order?
Yeah, I think I just want people, like, again, referring to my youth, you remember, these great records would come out, Zeppelin 4, Aerosmith Rocks, whatever. We'd run right to the record store, get the album, open it, you're reading who played what, the credits, and, but honestly, I just want people to enjoy the record for what it is, and I would love nothing more than for people to embrace it, and for me to, I don't know how to word this, but I would love to be able to grow my bubble so that I maybe pick up some new fans that maybe, like you were saying earlier, they're like, oh, that guy's a fucking asshole. I hated him in Motley Crue. But this is pretty good what he's doing now. Do you know what I mean? I just want to grow my bubble and be able to do more things. One of the things that I thought was amazing, obviously, I played with Richard Fortus and Dizzy Reed, and they went back to Guns N' Roses. And one of the first shows that they did, right when they got back together on this Not in This Lifetime tour, they played at Titan Stadium here in Nashville. And one of the coolest things was going to see them, and this guy walked on stage with a guitar as the opening act, and he just played, and I was sitting there talking to friends, and I could hear the guy sing, and I just kind of stopped and watched him. And it's this big burly guy, beard, long hair, playing guitar, and just singing like a bird. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? This guy's great. And it's like, you find out at the end, it's like, thank you, I'm Chris Stapleton. Thank you for allowing me to, blah, blah, blah. And he walked off stage, and I go, that guy was amazing. And I just love the fact that because he is who he is, he was able to go out and play with Guns N' Roses. He can go out and play with somebody like George Strait. He can go out and play with the Rolling Stones. He's just set himself up to be able to do just that, and that's what I'd like to be able to do as well. I feel like there's no reason why I couldn't sit down with an acoustic guitar and open for some of these edgier country guys. You know what I mean?
Now, as you're building your solo career, if Motley Crue was ever to come back and say, hey, you want to rejoin us, would you say, screw it, I'm doing a solo? Would you say, I'm
part of it? I did that. I bought the shirt. I dealt with a lot of stuff. And then, to be quite honest with you, I'm fine with Tommy. I'm fine with Mick. I'm even fine with Vince. But there's been some issues, and I, for the life of me, don't know why. But it's like, I just don't want to deal with the drama. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. So, I mean, I love the guys. I would love to be able to sit down and have a glass of wine with them, or just, whatever, just sit and chew the fat. But it's never going to go back to that, so why bother?
So,
you know what I mean?
So you plan to tour, you have some dates coming up in America. Where are you trying to tour in America with this band?
Anywhere that has electricity. It's like, right now I've got about a week's worth of dates in April, end of April. Again, in Europe, Frontiers Records does a festival every year in Milan, Italy. So we're going to do a few shows in Europe. We end in Milan. May 3rd, we play there. May 4th, we fly back to Newark, New Jersey. And May 5th, I start with Tom Kiefer in Buck Cherry in America.
Okay.
So I got a bunch of dates with Tom. I got a bunch of solo dates on my own. And I'm just looking forward to it, man. I literally just got off the phone with my agent. And I go, like, just book away, buddy. Just book away.
So I always wrap my show up with this. Looking back on your career and your life, just give me a few things that make you proud. You know, what has made you proud about your lengthy career, and, you know, what makes you proud?
Well, my kids. That's you know, that's daddy talk. But my kids are great kids. My grandkids are great kids. So I'm proud of that. You know, and even though I was having that moment when everybody and their grandmother was getting signed in Philadelphia, I made the right choice going to LA. And I was able to get a record deal. And then my dad said something to me that helped kind of change my life. When I was 50, I was kind of having a little bit of a moment, like glass half empty kind of moment. And I was saying, I never, like, all these years I've been doing this, playing music, and I was just in a foul mood. And I'm like, what do I have to show for it? And my dad stopped me dead in my tracks. He had told me before that he had wanted to be an artist. My dad was an amazing drawer. He could draw, paint. But he goes, you know what? I did what people thought I should do. And that was put a suit and tie on, get a job. Took care of my family. He goes, you, though, you went across country to chase a dream. And he goes, you still took care of your mother, your son, other family members that were ill. You had a couple of ex-wives, whatever. He goes, you did it playing your guitar. And my dad said, you're a bigger man than I'll ever be. And I was like, I had to get off the phone with him. But it really made me appreciate, like, yeah, I'm like anybody else, you know. Anytime I see, a new Vet or a Maserati or something like that, I go, man, why, God, if I just sold, I could look at it two ways. If I just sold a few more records, I could buy that car. Or if I just made my wife work one extra day a week, I could get whatever. Anyway, but it's like, yeah, I still have those moments, but I've actually, because of that conversation with my dad, he made me realize that I should be proud of everything that I've accomplished, everything that I've done. Even if I fell a little short, he goes, you've had a good life, a good run. You did it. You were chasing your dream, and you did every fucking thing you wanted to do. And I go, I can't top that. So it'd be my kids getting my record deal and my dad having that conversation would be the top three things that I'm most proud of.
This has been awesome, John. I'm so glad we got the time to talk. April 26th, the album comes out. Now, you can go to your website and pre-order it, right?
Yes, you can. It's April 24th. April 26th is my birthday.
Oh, okay. Well, happy birthday. So people, go to John's website. Go buy the album. I listen to it. It's really great. It is great. He's not, and I'm not saying that because he's on here. If it sucked, I wouldn't have talked about it. I would have been like, oh, yeah, but it's a really good album. It's you'll dig it. And go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over, I think you can find 1,060 episodes there. You can email me at cooper@coopertalk.net. And follow me on all the socials. That's at Cooper Talk on Twitter, X, and at Cooper Talk 1 on Threads and Instagram. So remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time.